My name is Mabokang, Monnapula-Mapesela. I'm the DVC Academic and Student Affairs here at Rhodes University. My reflection on the review of the IDP. Firstly, I would like to go back to where it all started. This process started around about May, with the VC engaging the whole university community on his framing document Mkombandlela to pave the way forward in terms of where your Rhodes University has to go in the next 5 to 10 years. And I'd like to just mention the importance of strategic planning for any organization. Firstly, one has to focus on 3 key issues. The purpose of the organization, that is the mission. One has to reflect on where they want to go, that is the vision, and what they would like to achieve. And thirdly, how they are going to achieve their mission and their vision. Then that entails the actual plan or the plans. And in such, then you have to outline the goals, you have to outline your objectives, you have to outline your resources, as well as how you're going to know whether you have done a good job of what you set yourself to do. So for us at Rhodes, the timing of the review coincided with an important process that we were busy with by the CHE, self-reflection or self-evaluation by the university community. One could have thought that was a disadvantage, but at the same time it was an opportunity for us to start reviewing our IDP at the time. And my role in the review of the IDP has been firstly to lead 2 working groups, one on teaching and learning and another one on student access, student support and success. And what we did right at the beginning was to invite the university community to come to 2 workshops. One workshop was in June and another one in July. And in the first workshop, we actually engaged in deliberations on the context. We analyzed the context at international, at continental, at national, even provincial, as well as locally in Makanda. We also looked at the context, the higher education context in our country, and furthermore, we looked at our general formative degree and whether it still serves the purpose, and also how we have performed over the 5-year period. And based on the context and the challenges that we identified at these different levels, then we deliberated on what needed to happen. And I must say, in those 2 workshops, we had a mix of staff. Deans were there, deputy deans, HODs, directors of divisions, and many other people came on board. For the 2, I think we had more than 30 people attending, which sometimes makes it very difficult to deal with in a strategic planning session. And I must say, there were lots of challenges. We engaged in robust discussions. We agreed on certain matters, and in certain instances, we really did not see eye to eye. But I must say, it was a collegial engagement that we had throughout. So what we eventually had at the Lekgotla in Bekweni was to suggest that there be a goal that is dedicated to teaching and learning, that gives clear focus to teaching and learning, to give teaching and learning the status as well as the gravitas that it deserves. And then we also focused on enhancing student experience and developing student-centered culture. and further looking at staff recruitment, staff development, as well as retention, especially focusing on academic staff, and the need for the institution to have a better coordinated academic development and support for students and staff, as well as the institution. And yes, I know that Rhodes University has for long placed emphasis on academic development for staff, with the understanding or the philosophy that a good teacher will manage to solve all the problems of the students. But with the changing context, we felt that there is need for us to place more focus or other focus on student development or student academic development as well. So going into the future, this is what also will be happening. We will be developing a more coherent and better coordinated academic development support for students. And we will be trying to think differently about what we teach and how we teach and assess, as well as how we support our students. Other important things that I would like to highlight is the emphasis that we're going to place on the scholar teacher. The fact that we need a scholar teacher that understands the value of the nexus of teaching, learning, as well as community engagement, and a person who can ensure that all our students can access powerful knowledge to become critical problem solvers and ethical citizens. I think COVID has taught us a lot. That is one thing that we also realized. We have learned so many lessons from COVID, and would also like to tap into the opportunities that were presented to us to make sure that we are never caught unprepared again, or if should another disaster strike. One thing that I have to mention is that during our deliberations, we were mindful of the four underpinning or cross-cutting themes that the Vice-Chancellor had put forward to us: the issue of quality, the issue of digital transformation and innovation, sustainability, and there was another one, equity and transformation. All those issues were also guiding our discussions throughout that time. And it is my wish that most of the recommendations that the Teaching and Learning Committee, in fact working group, as well as the Student Access and Support and Success working group made at the Lekgotla will be in the final IDP. One last thing that I must mention is that regarding the student access or recruitment, we felt that there need to be a focus on trying to develop sustainable relationships with schools, not only in Makanda, but also elsewhere. And when I say schools, I mean private schools, all types of schools, and not to confine ourselves to a particular type of school, if we are to also ensure that we recruit students who are well deserving and who can succeed. So having said that, I hope that all goes well with the final IDP.
My name is Peter Clayton. I am the Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Research and Innovation, and I've been convening the group that's been looking into research and creative endeavours in preparation for reviewing the IDP process. And it's been a very good experience so far. We started off by running a survey, which we got some very good responses from the academic staff community particularly. It enabled us to underscore some of the processes that we already have in place, some of the interventions, and it gave us some pointers to new ones that we actually need to put in place. We followed this up by running a few focus groups and calling for individual submissions, and then of course the Lekgotla weekend where we collected a lot more input, and all of it is tied together rather nicely. And so I am really looking forward to tweaking the IDP that we already have to make it even more relevant to the contextual changes that we've seen, and enabling us to do better in terms of quality and the kind of outputs we have in research for this particular university.
Hi, my name is Sue McKenna. I'm the Director of the Centre for Postgraduate Studies here at Rhodes University, and I worked closely with Professor Peter Clayton, DVC Research, in preparing for the IDP planning session. We collected data from a number of different sources. We sent out a survey that was developed by Professor Jen Snowball in economics, which really hoped to garner some of people's attitudes about research and creative outputs in terms of our practices and processes and goals as an institution. We then also had 3 focus groups with very established and with emerging researchers to ask them about their experiences in this regard. Overall, we had really positive findings. People are excited about research, and they really can see the value of postgraduate studies in a research-intensive university. It was clear in terms of postgraduate studies that we need to support our students in a more structured way so that students are not left to sink and swim, but so that they can be sure that they're part of a collaborative community that really has their best interests at heart and that is equally excited about their research endeavours.
Molweni, Noma Mrwetyana. I'm the Director of Student Affairs at Rhodes University. I was the convener of the Enhancing Student Experience Group. Our role was to look at how we can enhance the student experience at Rhodes University. We started off by looking at the various surveys that we've done in the past, and we also facilitated a student satisfaction survey whereby we're looking at the holistic experience of the student of Rhodes University. Our main focus was really on out of the classroom experience, and the highlights that came from the survey, the main thing was the lack of socializing spaces on campus. We also spoke about the importance of enhancing experience with regards to sports, looking at facilities and how we can ensure that we attract athletes that are competitive to Rhodes University. Another issue that was very important was the issue of mental health. We did look into the various ways of ensuring that we enhance support by looking at diversifying our psychological services, that is your psychosocial, experience of a student, by diversifying such services and ensuring that there's enough capacity to support our students. And with regards to the Lekgotla itself, I'm very pleased and I was very happy that the voice of the student was heard to an extent that at the Lekgotla it was agreed that we need to separate the in-classroom experience of a student from the out-of-classroom experience. In the past, there used to be one goal that spoke to that. And now, at the Lekgotla, it was decided that we need to introduce an 8th goal that is specifically focusing on student experience, which covers the various areas that I mentioned earlier on, that is sports, psychosocial services, as well as leadership development, because this is where leaders learn. Thank you very much.
Dumelang, ke tshepa gore tsotlhe di apere tshiamo. Leina la ka ke Botlhale Modisa. I'm a Master of Economics candidate and SRC president. I was part of the 2 working groups at the IDP Review Lekgotla, namely People, Values and Culture and the Student Experience Group. And what stood out for me is the importance of people and students in the general IDP, the institutional development plan, how exactly do students and people around Rhodes University, the Rhodes University community, stakeholders that engage with the Rhodes University community, how do they play a role in shaping Rhodes, and how do they play a role in making sure that the IDP is what it is? How exactly does it execute its vision and mission? How does the IDP in essence help execute Rhodes' vision and mission? And I do think that having people who understand the values and culture of Rhodes University plays a big role in knowing what the institution is, particularly in a domestic context and also in an international context, because Rhodes' vision speaks to being internationally acclaimed. And I think that the addition of a new goal 8, which speaks to a holistic student experience, speaks directly to what students should be experiencing in all facets of their life, because they're not just here to study, but they're also here to grow and nourish their minds with new knowledge and become world changers, innovators, thinkers as a result. And I do think that also goes hand in hand with the values and culture of the institution. Then I was also visiting different groups, and I managed to see the linkages between the different groups, how exactly they complement each other and how they can build onto each other for the next IDP that will stand from 2023 to 2027. The IDP actually performed quite well, given the fact that we did have 2 years of COVID. We are still in a COVID context, but 2 years of hard lockdown restrictions and regulations. 6.5 out of 10 was the performance, and I'm hopeful that we will even go higher than that score based on the Lekgotla that we had in Mbekweni, and I trust that students will also continue to be a part of the process as time goes on. Ke a leboga.
Hello, my name is Kamlesh Riga. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Rhodes University, and I also convened the task team on environmental and financial sustainability. As we all know, financial sustainability is a key imperative of any institution to survive. With that, we need to also be sensitive to our environment and ensure that Rhodes University is both financially sustainable and also is environmentally sustainable. To this regard, our suggested strengths were that Rhodes University has experienced leadership with a track record. We have access to world-class capital in terms of academic and human resources. However, there are certain threats in the system that we need to also overcome. One of these being service delivery. However, I think we have got plans and actions in place, and the IDP shows that the university does have the mettle to overcome these challenges. If I can discern from the discussions of the weekend, I know that our IDP for the next 5 years, or even going on to the next 10 years, is one that will be sound, that has been consulted on, and that will hold the university in good stead. Other observations were that it was a thorough and a very transparent process, and I think we'll all get a very good product out of this. Thank you.
My name is Professor Lawrence Juma. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Law, and I was the convener of the working group on internationalization and external partnerships. We had quite an interesting discussions in our working group, and we were happy to have been assigned this task. Some of the key issues that we discussed in our group, firstly, was the importance of making the university community aware of some of the external partnerships that we have. And the group did recommend very highly that there should be a kind of dashboard which contains all the information about the partnerships which already exist as we now move towards making new partnerships and engagements across the African continent. The second issue that did occupy the working group quite a lot was the issue of support of international students and international staff at Rhodes University. There were discussions about methods of increasing recruitment from across the African continent, issues of orientation for students who are already here, supporting them secure accommodation, and so on and so forth. And the group did make some recommendations in that regard. All these discussions were based on the recognition of the African we want, the Africa Vision 2063, as well as the SDG goals. And we were happy to be part, as I've already said, we were happy to be part of this discussion. And of course, we did table our recommendations at the IDP in Mbizo, which we had towards the close of last term. We hope that this process will yield considerable benefit to the development of internationalization at Rhodes University, and we do look forward to the last product. Thank you.
I'm Orla Quinlan, and I'm the Director of Internationalization at Rhodes University, and I was one of the conveners of the Working Group on Internationalization and External Partnerships. Working with this group provided a really timely opportunity to actually think about some of the global imperatives that we have at the moment, including the Sustainable Development Goals, the Vision for Africa 2063, the recent UNESCO roadmap, and to really consider to what extent Rhodes University is going to be involved with and make contributions to all these global imperatives. We also had time to consider some of the national imperatives from the National Development Plan, and also the relatively recently gazetted Policy Framework on Internationalization of Higher Education in South Africa, which now compels all universities to have a plan around how they are going to internationalize their various activities. We also had the opportunity to build on the work of the Internationalization Committee, who were also quite preoccupied with revising our own internal policy on internationalization. So we were able to feed all that work into the working group for this particular process. We actually do a lot of internationalization at Rhodes University, but we have a decentralized model, which means we have lots of different departments, divisions, faculties doing activities, but we're not necessarily aware of just the extent of these activities. So I think that the review of the IDP at this moment in time just was a great convergence of global imperatives, national imperatives, and a chance to really recognize what we have going on in the university. So I hope that the new IDP will reflect all those dimensions, from the global to the national to the local to the institutional, so that we both optimize the visibility of what we currently do, and indicate our interest to the rest of the world of engaging and collaborating on some of these issues.
I'm Professor Tony Booth. I'm the Dean of Science at Rhodes University, and I was leading the working group looking at infrastructure repairs and maintenance at the university for the Lekgotla. The ambit, I suppose, of the working group is we're having a look at all the buildings, all the roads, all the paving, all the Wi-Fi infrastructure, all the water pipes, all the electricity underground, all the electricity above ground, all the grounds and gardens, all the trees. So it was quite broad. What came through with the working group is that we have a lot of space on campus. We're an open campus which does not have any borders and fences and gates. We have a campus which allows Grahamstown residents to walk onto it and walk off it when they want, and it's very open. Having all the space means it requires a lot of maintenance. Maintenance is expensive, so we have to budget accordingly. It also means, with all the spaces, we're trying to have a look at different ways of using our space. What came through with Lekgotla is that we are wanting to move towards a more postgraduate trajectory. At the moment, we are under 30% postgrad. We want to increase that, pushing towards 40% postgraduates, and we need to know where we need to build new buildings, put in new infrastructure, so we can account for this growth in our postgraduates. We also need to be creative with the ways that we're using space. It's important that we possibly can use space for more than one event or one function. I'm thinking about utilising our laboratory slightly differently, using our teaching facilities slightly differently, where we can have multiple users in the same space. We had a look at improving the sporting facilities. At the moment, a lot of our students are not active in playing sport. Maybe we can get them to play more sport, which means probably building some clubhouses, getting them out of res, getting them active on the field. We have lights. We have new tennis courts, new squash courts, and a new swimming pool, and we can utilise the space better. What also came out of the Lekgotla was the need for an audit on access to our buildings. At the moment, if you walk around, the previous architects clearly did not think of anybody that was disabled, and it's important that just be able to walk on campus and get to our council chamber. If you're in a wheelchair, it's really difficult. We're on a big slope from the hill right down to town, and building on a slope means that there are lots and lots of steps, and we need to have a look at different ways of accessing our buildings such that our students with disabilities have greater access at the university. What is nice that came out of the Lekgotla is that there's really some action taking place. We had a look at some trees growing out of gutters and out of walls. We've put up scaffolding. Those trees have been removed. They've been replastered. We're having a look at our water, and that's already being looked at already. So there are signs that the routine maintenance is beginning to kick in, which is exciting. It might be exciting to me, not very exciting to you, but it means that things are happening. We're looking after our buildings that we have, such that we're going into the future. There's going to be less money spent on them if we just look after them and put them onto some sort of roster where you can, where it's timed, the maintenance is preventative, and we can look after what we have before we build the new things that we need for our postgraduate trajectory. Thank you.
I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Pharmacy. I'm Professor Sandile Kamanga. I'm also the convener of the PQM group, which is the Program Qualification Mix group. And we had a number of discussions on campus, which really looks at the PQM of Rhodes University. What that means is we look at the list of programs that are offered at Rhodes University, starting from all the faculties that we have. And in essence, we are looking at which programs that we are offering that we really need to retain, programs that we most probably need to introduce. And maybe in our list as well, there are programs that needs to be discontinued. Obviously, that requires discussions. And we met with faculty deans, we met with academic departments, the HODs, and we presented what the PQM group will be doing. So when we talk about the list of programs that the university offers, we first need to understand external factors, looking at the National Development Plan 2030, AU Agenda 2063, and also look at the demand of the program. That is very, very important. And also looking at our quality offering at Rhodes University. That is programs where we've been doing very well. We retain those programs because of high demand, and also because we want to introduce other programs in terms of the present and the future demand. And we also look at the opportunities. Being in the Eastern Cape, we start to understand what programs would make Rhodes University unique, etc. And other programs are of strategic importance. So when you look therefore at the NDP 2030 and also look at United Nations, the programs that it speaks to what agenda do we have. And a university doesn't just introduce any program without understanding, one, our strengths as a university. And I've already spoken about the opportunities that new programs present to a university. We lastly look at the capacity of the university. Are we able to anchor a program of a particular magnitude? And in the discussions, there were many programs and very interesting ones that one would start thinking about. Other programs are in the Faculty of Science, other programs that needs to be strengthened. We also have other programs in the Faculty of Humanities, other programs that would be in the Faculty of Commerce, and to think even broader, to say also in the Faculty of Pharmacy, is it also possible to expand looking at health sciences? And there are programs which we don't have in the Eastern Cape. So what does that mean, therefore, for us as Rhodes University? I'll explain. It means there are a lot of opportunities. And at times we don't really spend time to reflect on the quality of the programs that we have. Taking them not only at bachelor's level, honors, at master's level, to grow as a university. Some of the programs that are there, we increase the number of postgraduate students at Rhodes University, because we cannot just stretch in a linear fashion, but we also need our thinking to be non-linear, meaning we cover the whole horizon. And we've been doing well in terms of research. Therefore, some of the teaching that takes place at undergraduate level, the new programs that would probably need to be introduced will be at postgraduate level, because there is a base, there is support, there is capacity, these are quality programs, the demand is there, and these are opportunities that we are presenting themselves. And we are very excited that we even went for our Lekgotla, which was in Port Alfred. The discussion there, again, it really eloquently looked at the elements that I've presented on the demand, quality, opportunity, strategic importance, and the capacity of the university as it is in 2022.
I'm Owen Skay, the director of Rhodes Business School, and I was one of the co-conveners of the working group People, Values and Culture. Probably, in many respects, one of the more challenging working groups in relation to understanding how people, values and culture is going to have an influence on our institutional development plan. Now in IDP version 1, one of the quotes that was referred to was that by the famous management guru Peter Drucker, where he stated that your culture will eat your strategy for breakfast. And our view is that perhaps this is time for a rethink in relation to that, because we feel that there has been progress in relation to creating a supportive culture that is definitely going to result in IDP 2 having an even greater impact than IDP 1 has. Now, why do I say that? I think that everybody acknowledged that this IDP was far more participatory and far more bottom-up in relation to what it was that we were required to do in order to feed into the overall process. Now, how did we do that? We had a very dynamic group that was very representative of colleagues within the university, support staff members, academics, many of whom are specialists in organizational psychology, for example, as well as students. And we took the view that we needed to get some data, so we undertook a survey for which we got a reasonable response rate, and it was very informative in relation to identifying some of the key issues that needed to be addressed. Now, the most important in relation to value was the extent to which, across the board, very high aspiration for us to be an excellent institution. What we also found was that the people that responded by and large believe that we have the right amount of values. And certainly there was a fair degree of consensus that those values must be maintained. What we also found is that in relation to some of the areas that we need to address, that there's a strong feeling regarding us becoming more responsive in the way that we need to do things. And also that accountability is something that we need to pay more attention to. Now, in relation to the change management process, one thing that we really identified is that the university follows the characteristics of what's called a loosely coupled system. And there's a lot of strong evidence actually in the literature around what it means. Now, we have to acknowledge that change is necessary, change is a constant. And I think that where we have advanced in our thinking in relation to IDP 1 and IDP 2 is that however we're going to affect that change, it must be within our understanding of what a loosely coupled system is. And so part of that says that our change must be continuous. We have to really focus on creating shared values. And it's really about enhanced leadership. And so this is where we really gave the recommendations around how we can ensure that there's continuous change, that we have these shared values, and that there's enhanced leadership. And we believe that if the university embraces those, then we will really reach the heights of what we aspire to do out of IDP 2. Thank you.
I'm Professor Dave Suri. I'm the Dean of Commerce, and I was also chair of the Vision and Mission Working Group as part of the renewed Institutional Development Plan. So it was a small group of us got together to consider any changes that we might want to bring about to the vision and mission statements of the university. If you go back with the current vision and mission, that was approved by the University Council around about 2001, 2002. So our current vision is 21 years old. So it was certainly about time for us to have a look at it, almost independent of any changes that we might want to bring about to the institutional development plan. So there were a number of things that we looked at. Certainly starting off with the current vision and mission, it was quite long, it was quite wordy, and we were conscious of the need to have a short, sharp and punchy new vision and mission for the institution. In addition to that, there were a couple of other important documents that we wanted to look at. The first of which was the Vice-Chancellor's 10-point plan that he put on the table at the time of his inauguration. There were the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There was Africa Vision 2063, and of course the National Development Plan of our country. We spent a couple of meetings looking at what the current vision and mission was, identifying aspects that we would like to see kept, and obviously allowing it to churn in our minds what we might like to put in as new aspects of a vision and a mission. Certainly there was much food for thought in those supplementary documents. As I said, the VC's 10-point plan, SDP, National Development Plan, and Africa 2063. Fortunately, all of them speak to education and the role that education can play within our country and on the African continent and more broadly than that. So we were really in safe waters, as it were, in terms of what our central goal was at the university. So although we haven't got the final vision and mission, that's subject to the final deliberations and outcomes of the IDP, I'm particularly proud of what we have put on the table as a new vision and mission. And maybe I can just give you a taste of what was presented at the Lekgotla that we had to look at the IDP. So our vision at the moment is to be foremost in the generation and advancement of locally responsive and globally engaged knowledge dedicated to the creation of a just and a sustainable society. And I think there are important words within all of that. Our aspiration certainly is to be foremost. So our big, hairy, audacious goal is to be foremost in the generation and the advancement of locally responsive and globally engaged knowledge. And we're particularly keen on that locally responsive yet globally engaged knowledge. And we're dedicating it to the creation of a just and a sustainable society, which speaks very much to those founding documents that we used in support of the creation of our new vision and mission statements. And as for our mission, what's our purpose? Well, it is to provide transformative education, rigorous scholarship and resource that seeks to produce knowledge that advances the frontiers of science, human understanding and wisdom, that cultivates knowledgeable and skilled graduates, caring and engaged citizens, and responsible, courageous and ethical leaders. And finally, it enables social and economic development based on respectful and mutually beneficial partnerships with diverse communities. And I think if I have a look at that vision, our purpose, it is transformative. It is transformative education, rigorous scholarship, and research that seeks to play into three aspects: knowledge, people, and communities. That knowledge is going to advance the frontiers of science, human understanding, and wisdom. And we're going to be cultivating knowledgeable and skilled graduates. Those are the people that we would like to see coming out of our institution and become caring and engaged citizens, and who are the very essence of responsible, courageous, and ethical leaders that every society wishes to have. And finally, we are going to enable social and economic development based on respectful and mutually beneficial partnerships with diverse communities, wherever those communities might be, locally within the city of Mkanda, regionally, provincially in the Eastern Cape province, nationally on the African continent, and more broadly. I'm excited by our new vision and mission, and I'm looking forward to working at an institution that has that as its vision and mission.
My name is Sisesa Kentlabezo, the Program Manager of the Mkanda Circle of Unity and one of the three co-conveners of the Community Engagement and Social Responsibility Working Group as part of the Rhodes University IDP review. I've got the other co-convener here. Professor, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Cyril Nhlanhla-Mbatha. I'm the Director of the Institute of Social and Economic Research. Really pleased to have worked with SACI in such an important project and new for Rhodes, and so we're starting, and I think going forward it is looking really promising.
Yes, yes. In absentia is one of our other co-conveners, Ms. Diana Hornby, who's the Director of Community Engagement at the university. And ours, I think, was a bit of a targeted approach, Prof. As part of reviewing aspects of the university's integrated strategic plan, particularly to center and prioritize community engagement, there were targeted, we call them caucus groups or discussion spaces that were convened with different thematic areas of people that work within the community engagement space and or in the broader realm of the university, from your academics to your students to our community partners that work at the institution in a variety of areas. And in those spaces, we brought them together and asked them, well, here exists the standing IDP Do you think the university has effectively responded to all the obligations listed there? And in what ways can we collectively, and I think the big we there is the best part, what ways can we collectively improve on it and set up a host of priorities to follow for the next 5 years?
I must say also, I really liked the fact that even though we were kind of short of time, the enthusiasm and the responses from the stakeholders that the university is already engaged with was so high that there was quite a high turnout as far as I could tell.
Yes.
People came in from the different structures or from the different spaces, including the municipality space, including the business space, including students, including academics. You know, people just like put time aside, even though it was at short notice, and they came in to make really positive contributions to the process. I was really encouraged to see that kind of support for the process myself.
Yeah, no, I think for me, one of the biggest standing points or biggest takeaways is just how effusive the support that community members and partners are showing for the university's continued contribution to developing leaders that understand how their neighboring community must function, to doing projects that contribute to the development of the city, but to also playing an active role in the development more broadly of the area that we're part of. I think the sense that we really got was that when it comes to access, there's joy and there's happiness and there's big support for the model of community engagement developed at Rhodes that could be used in other spaces. And if anything, one of the biggest calls was that perhaps now is the opportunity for the university to start thinking bigger and scale up in more ways, and in doing so target and work towards including other persons in the process. And in many ways it's a call to arms to not just continue on the trajectory, but to hasten and strengthen everything that we've been doing. And that's really meaningful to get back from your partners.
Yes, I mean, I really like the learning process that that was engaged with, where stakeholders would also come in and give us stories about how they're doing things and make suggestions to how, as a university, we could improve in engaging with them. Particularly with this group, I think the whole framework of community engagement, the way it's been thought through over the years, was very attractive to many of the stakeholders, like you say, in a way that when they looked at it, when they understood the concept, they felt that they could actually borrow this concept from the university and use it in their own work. So that sort of co-learning, sharing of ideas, co-creating knowledge and co-creating strategies was very attractive for me, and it's something that I think could be emulated, even beyond just the IDP process.
Yeah. And I think, just for me, the closing sentiment is that to know that the partners that the Community Engagement Office has worked so well in fostering, partners that can benefit from strong partnerships with ISA and the Circle of Unity, to know that they feel that there's value in the projects we're doing, and to know that they're coming and saying, come let us do this work together, is perhaps one of the most encouraging things, because it means that whatever happens in the next 5 years is done so not just from a singular point of office or point of departure, but by a collective of persons who are really committed to the principle of working with the community, for the community, and doing work by the community. And that's such a beautiful sentiment to hold.
Yeah, and also just going forward, the fact that, so as a group, we put together our findings, our thoughts, our suggestions, but because of the reiteratory nature of trying to fine-tune whatever is going to end up being in the strategy, the whole university or members from other groups joined into the discussions and made contributions at a later stage. We learned from other groups, including research, including teaching and learning, and we also identified the many cross-cutting issues that are faced with, that are similar
to the issues that we face, and also the other groups within the university and in the process itself were also faced with. So coming together afterwards, identifying the lessons that we had learned, it really did transpire that community engagement on its own, is not a standalone area, but it is interfaced with research, teaching and learning, and there are cross issues there that from which you could learn from. So that was also great to identify.
Thank you. Well, I think from that moment, the only thing we can look forward to say is that we're hopeful that the new IDP will be developed within the next few months, and it gives each of us in the university hopefully a very clear, crisp and concise guiding path about where we can go in the next journey of the institution. It's exciting to have been able to play part in a role and play a role in a process like this. Oftentimes strategic plans are developed in very closed quarters, but this has really been developed and curated in a way that invites contributions from all spaces and values them as much as possible so that they're integrated. And in doing so, I think it creates a sense of ownership that is really hard to ever quite quantify. At its core, it just gives us strength for the work we do, and we hope we can continue to do so with all the partners who've joined us.
And play the role of Umkombandlela, which is a lot more illustrative in terms of what the process is trying to do in isiXhosa as well as isiZulu. So there we go, Umkombandlela, way to go.